Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us on another episode of Startup Talks. We are joined today by the very famous Mohammad Nasrullah, better known as Nash. He's been an entrepreneur since 2005 when hardly anyone in Pakistan knew what the startup life is all about. He's been a co-founder of several companies in Pakistan since then. In 2017, he took the leap of faith and founded Integry, an integration platform for SaaS companies with a truly global product. Integri has been part of the Alchemist Accelerator 2018 and also the second cohort of NIC. Last year, it attracted pre-seed investment of $1 million from tech leaders at WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Lyft, Cisco, Microsoft, Google, and AppDirect. The company has so far raised over $3.5 million according to Crunchbase. So, Nash, thank you very much for joining Startup Talks. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's great. So, what's Integri all about? You've been in the news quite a bit in Pakistan.
Um, well, Integry is my fourth startup, and it's a very technical company. So it's basically, if you are a SaaS company, you need integrations. You need
Mhm,
to be able to import data. You need to be able to export data.
mhm,
Your app cannot be in isolation. And so every SaaS company needs to have integrations. We make it very easy for SaaS companies to implement integrations for their users with hundreds of apps.
mhm,
So if you are a sales application like a CRM, you need to be able to import tasks or calendars or contacts. We make it very easy for your users to do that. And
mhm.
as the SaaS world is exploding, as there are more and more SaaS apps, we are making it very easy, very simple for SaaS product teams to be able to add these integrations inside this app. I like to joke that we are like internet plumbing. We move data from one place to another.
Mhm.
So it's like that. But it's rather technical. But this is we are product for SaaS companies.
Okay. Since there's a lot of data involved, what about security matters? Because with large big tech companies, data privacy and data security is very important, especially with all the stuff in the news about Facebook and the lawsuits and
Yes,
everything.
absolutely. And so we take data very, very seriously, privacy as well as security. As a matter of fact, I personally have a 7 point philosophy around how we handle your data.
Mhm.
And the cornerstone of that philosophy is that I consider data as a toxic asset.
Mhm.
So just like a toxic asset, we don't want to hold it, we don't want to collect it, and if we have it, we want to keep it for the minimum amount of time,
Mhm.
and we want to dispose of it as quickly as possible. And I'm talking about personal data, right?
Mhm.
We don't monetize it, we don't want to sell it, we don't want to do anything of that. So at the heart of our philosophy is that data is toxic. We don't want to keep any of that. The personal data, right?
Mhm.
The second tenet of that is transparency. If we have your data, you have the right to know what data we have on you. You can request it, you can delete it.
Mhm.
If there's a question you ask, we will, communicate with you quickly. We are security and privacy by default, by design. So we make sure that anything we design, we think first and foremost about privacy, not after the fact. And then we also implement black boxing. We don't look at your data. We are like a pipe, like I mentioned to you. And then priority support around data and stuff like that. So it's very important. Like I said, we don't want to monetize privacy data, sorry, personal data. We don't think that's where our value in business is. Our value is in integrations in other areas. You, as a customer of ours, you can use the data on top of our system however you like, but that is not visible to us. So I hope that answers the question. But we sort of use, and also in security, we use the higher security standards. We have encryption at rest, at motion.
Mhm.
We have the highest security encryptions that we use across the board, and we have whole processes in place to protect data and anonymization, pseudo-anonymization, and all that stuff.
Okay. Now, I believe since you are currently in Pakistan, the company is based out of the US. You've got some teams as well in Pakistan, I guess. Uh, in Pakistan, software is usually considered as design and development industry. The common understanding doesn't go beyond that. But you've been building something since 2017. Look at when I first saw your profile picture on LinkedIn, you've got Lego blocks specs on you. And I mean, it tells a
Yeah,
lot about you that you like building things, right?
yeah, I agree.
It's really cool, actually.
I
My
appreciate
son,
that.
my son is into stuff like that as well. But uh, w- h- if in layman's terms, how would you differentiate your product and what Pakistan's perception is about software as a service?
So it's very interesting. I've made so this is my fourth startup. My previous three companies were all focused towards selling into the Pakistani market.
Mm-hmm.
This included in the telecom space. We had a balance share product. We built Ring, one of Pakistan's largest social networks. Back in the day, we had 8 million users.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been very much attracted to building products. And in terms of what is different, it's I think if you're comparing us with let's say, an outsourcing company, like a project-based company, if that's the question, then there's definitely a lot. If you look at a product-based company,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things they have to do. काफी सारा काम करना पड़ता है. They have to own the branding, the marketing. They have to own the customer relationship, the support, the understanding, and you build a product with the customer in mind. You use a customer-first philosophy, and उसका सारा समझने के बाद आप जो product सोचते हैं, वो काफी अंदर जाने के बाद प्रोडक्ट की बारी आती है. और प्रोडक्ट में होना क्या, वो भी आप सोच के फिर आप सिर्फ जो आउटसोर्स करते हैं, दैट्स जस्ट द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन पार्ट. तो
Yeah.
इफ यू इन पाकिस्तान, आपके पास वो आखिरी जो है ना, 10 लास्ट 10-20% वो मिलता है. एंड द कोर आईपी, द कोर डिजाइन, द कोर ग्रोथ जो है ना आपकी, वो यहाँ पर है. इट्स ऑन दिस पार्ट. अब ये हो गया सिंस आई एम ओल्ड, तो जब से मिलेनियल बग आया था, इंडिया बिकेम अ रियली बिग आउटसोर्सिंग हब.
Mm-hmm.
ये जो आपका इंजीनियरिंग आउटसोर्सिंग है, ये कमोडिटाइज हो चुका हुआ है. आपको स्टैंडर्ड रैक रेट्स मिल जाते हैं, यू कैन जस्ट पर आवर रेट्स मिल जाते हैं. इसमें इतनी खास वैल्यू नहीं है अनलेस आप कोई नीश करते हैं इस तरह करके. बट एंड सो फॉर एग्जांपल, मोस्ट ऑफ दीज आउटसोर्सिंग कंपनीज जो कि पर आवर बेचती हैं अपने लेबर को, they don't make more than 30-40% on top of that. It's typically not a lot beyond that. Whereas if you're a product company, you can easily do $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 per employee revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can hit those limits, and so that's very exciting. And there's a lot more differences that goes in place, but just on the surface level, there's a lot more diversity of experience that you need. You need a much better understanding of your customers. You own your customer relationship, and that's something very exciting. But that also what excites me about these new startups in Pakistan, who for the first time have to now build products for Pakistanis, have to understand Pakistan and so on. आपको मैं छोटी सी एग्जांपल देता हूँ. जब हमने सोशल नेटवर्क प्रिंग्स शुरू किया था, इट वाज एन एसएमएस बेस्ड नेटवर्क. आप मैसेज करते थे एक शॉर्ट कोड पे. मिसाल के तौर पे आप कहते थे कि जी मुझे Nash से अपडेट्स चाहिए. सो जो सोशल नेटवर्क वाज लाइक ट्विटर ऑन एसएमएस. तो शुरू में मैं जेके का ग्रेजुएट हूँ जी. आई एम फ्रॉम 2004. हमने पूरा का पूरा अंग्रेजी में बनाया हुआ था. जो पहले बंदा आता था तो हेलो व्हाट इज योर नेम, इस तरह करके सारे सवाल होते थे. एंड वंस वी लेटर ऑन लुक एट द डाटा, हम देखा सब लोग रोमन उर्दू में बात कर रहे हैं या नस्लीक में बात कर रहे हैं. And so what we did was we started asking users in the first message, please select your language, English, Nastaliq Urdu, Roman Urdu. And what we found was 95% users selected Urdu.
Mm-hmm.
And so and it's just that when you're closer to the users, आपको तब एहसास होता है कि there's a huge gap in even just the interface, even just the language, even just the way we talk about things. जो कि हम जी जाके लम्स के पड़े बच्चे हैं, हम एक बबल में हैं, हम एक अलग से, we're too disconnected from what is essentially the bottom of the pyramid. Bring में मैंने बहुत ज़्यादा सीखा कि how do you communicate with any man, like the average Pakistani, and that was very exciting in that.
Chale, that's great. Now, since you've got high value tech product, very technology intensive, right, coming out of Pakistan, which is great. What sort of hurdles do you face? I mean, with regards to human resource, because right now, tech resource globally is a huge problem. So how are you
So
covering?
that's a great question. So we have always been a distributed company. We started this company in 2017, and way before Corona, we decided that this is going to be a distributed company. And I like to joke we are not just distributed in space, we're also distributed in time. What that means is that you can work at Integry from any part of the country, any part of the world. but also you can work at any time. So I have kids here, so you might hear some
That's
background fun
fine.
noise.
Mine are also behind the computer.
So what we do is we hire from any place in Pakistan, and that's been a huge advantage for us, even when we were starting off.
Mhm.
अब ये हो गया कि there has लोगों को समझ आ गया कि जी you can hire from any place. It's not a strange idea. लेकिन I was just talking to somebody today. It was a Silicon Valley company which had their product office in Pakistan. अब वो जो the person I was talking to, he was a senior guy in what is a DevOps का role. उसका exact counterpart San Francisco में है.
Mhm.
And this guy came in early. इसने पूरी टीम बनाई थी और उसका जो counterpart है, he gets paid in dollars और उसको मिलती है 2 लाख प्लस डॉलर्स की तनख्वाह. इस बंदे को मुश्किल से साल की $60,000 तनख्वाह भी नहीं मिलती. और ये पूरी दुनिया में, ये फेसबुक ऐसे करता है, गूगल ऐसे करता है कि गूगल अगर आपको इंडिया में तनख्वाह देगा कम देगा. तो एनीवे मेरी फिलॉसफी ये है कि मैं इस चीज़ से सख्त खिलाफ हूँ कि अगर मेरा स्किल सेट, मैं पाकिस्तान बैठे मेरा स्किल सेट वही है जो कि आप है और आप सैन फ्रांसिस्को बैठे हुए हैं, तो मैंने तो ज्यादा मेहनत की है. पाकिस्तान में स्टैनफोर्ड तो नहीं है, पाकिस्तान में MIT तो नहीं है, तो आई हैव टू वर्क ट्वाइस एज हार्ड अंडर ट्वाइस एज सर्कमस्टांसेस. तो मुझे तनख्वाह कम क्यों दे रहे हैं? तो मेरी फिलॉसफी ये है कि एंड आई होप टू डू दिस कि चाहे आप सैन फ्रांसिस्को में हो चाहे पाकिस्तान में, आपको तनख्वाह सेम देनी चाहिए. तो विच मीन्स ये नहीं कि सैन फ्रांसिस्को की तनख्वाह कम होगी, इट विल मीन कि पाकिस्तान की तनख्वाह बढ़ेगी. तो इस फिलॉसफी का मुझे फायदा ये है कि आई थिंक कि पाकिस्तान के अंदर लोग इंजीनियर्स को तनख्वाह बहुत कम देते हैं, एंड आई एम मोर देन हैप्पी टू पे हैंडसमली. हमारी फिलॉसफी है वी हायर टॉप 1% एंड वी पे टॉप 1%. एंड उस हवाले से हमें टैलेंट का इशू नहीं रहा. हमें वी बीन एबल टू हायर पीपल इजीली. मेरे बहुत सारे CEO दोस्त हैं, इंजीनियरिंग कंपनीज रन करते हैं, वो अक्सर कंप्लेन करते हैं जी पाकिस्तान में टैलेंट नहीं है. मैं कहता अच्छा व्हाट डू यू मीन पाकिस्तान में टैलेंट नहीं, कंपेयर टू व्हाट? कंपेयर टू द वैली. लेकिन वैली में तो लोगों की तनख्वाह 2-3 लाख डॉलर है, आप तो उसके 10% भी नहीं दे रहे. तो जब when you're not paying them those valley salaries but you expect valley level work, how is that fair, right?
Mhm.
तो आई डोंट थिंक कि पाकिस्तान में टैलेंट का इशू है. हम यहाँ पे पैसे नहीं देते, वी डोंट एसेंशियली गिव दैट मच, और उसकी वजह ये थी शुरू में इतनी डिमांड नहीं थी. अब आई एम वेरी हैप्पी कि देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ वेंचर मनी इन द ईस्टर्न मार्केट्स, तो वहां से डायरेक्टली डिमांड बहुत आ रही है. दुबई में से डिमांड आ रही है, वो डायरेक्टली पाकिस्तानी को रिमोटली हायर करते हैं और डायरेक्टली पाकिस्तानियों को डॉलर्स में पे करते हैं, which is fantastic. I want the salaries of engineers to go high. I want the people of Pakistan to earn more. I want this base ceiling to go higher. उसका बहुत फायदा है. And so I don't think I don't we haven't hit this limit yet, and I think there's a large gap. There are phenomenal people in Pakistan. You just need to be able to pay them according to what they're working, what they're worth.
It's really actually great to know the thought behind that, that you are very considerate on equality and what people are paid. Now, in again in layman's terms, what is the product all about? How does it integrate with other application for a normal user, right?
Right.
But taking SaaS companies aside, taking me for example, I've got a smartphone in my hand and
Mhm.
I've got Integry integrated into all my applications. How does it work?
अच्छा, सो द डिफरेंस इज कि हम एक B2C कंपनी नहीं है, तो हमारा जो बायर है वो एंड यूजर नहीं है. अलबत्ता हमारा बायर है B2B है. तो मिसाल के तौर पे अगर आप एक बिजनेस हैं, मिसाल के तौर पे आप अगेन में यू हैव टू बी अ सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी, एक SaaS कंपनी टू बी आवर कस्टमर. और मैं बार बार एग्जांपल लेता हूँ, अगर आप एक सेल्स की कंपनी है, आप सेल्स का कोई सॉफ्टवेयर बनाते हैं, बट यू कैन टेक एन एग्जांपल. तो क्या ही अच्छा हो कि जब भी कोई आपका एजेंट कोई सेल क्लोज करे आपको स्लैक पे मैसेज आ जाए. क्या ही अच्छा हो कि कोई अगर कस्टमर इशू आता है, सपोर्ट की टिकट आती है, तो आपको व्हाट्सएप पे मैसेज आ जाए एस्केलेशन का. तो ये सारा आपको आपके सॉफ्टवेयर को दुनिया के बाकी सॉफ्टवेयर के साथ इनको मुंसलिक करना, इनको जोड़ना वो मुश्किल काम है. और चूंकि हर जो सॉफ्टवेयर है उसकी अपनी, हम कहते हैं एपीआई समझे कि मशीन इंटरफेस है, जैसे इंसानों के लिए यूजर इंटरफेस होती है.
Mhm.
तो जस्ट लाइक हर ऐप की अपनी यूजर इंटरफेस अलग होती है, हर ऐप की अपनी मशीन इंटरफेस जिसको एपीआई बोलते हैं वो डिफरेंट होती है. तो उन सबको अलग अलग जोड़ना बहुत लंबा, बहुत मुश्किल काम है. आपके लिए खासतौर पे अगर आप सेल्स की ऐप बना रहे हैं, किस आप स्लैक को सीखेंगे, क्या आप व्हाट्सएप को सीखेंगे, ये बहुत कुछ करने को होता है. तो इंटेग्री क्या करता है कि आपको एक सिंगल आपने चैनल पे कनेक्ट करना है इंटेग्री के साथ। आगे इंटेग्री खुद ही जहाँ पे आपने मैसेज भेजना है हम वहां पे खुद ही उसको रिडायरेक्ट कर देंगे, वो चाहे मैसेंजर पे भेज रहे हैं, एसएमएस पे, ट्विलियो पे भेज रहे हैं, व्हाट्सएप पे भेज रहे हैं, वील हैंडल ऑल ऑफ दैट फॉर यू। आपको उसकी फिक्र करने की जरूरत नहीं है। ये एक सिंपल एग्जांपल है। इस पे फिर आप एनीथिंग यू कैन थिंक ऑफ विद मल्टीपल सिस्टम्स। मैंने जी आपके सेल सिस्टम के अंदर अपनी एक्सेल फाइल इंपोर्ट करनी है, या फिर मैंने जो है कोई डाटा सिंक करना है अपने फोन के कॉन्टैक्ट्स के अपने उसके साथ। सो देयर आर मेनी थिंग्स दैट यू कैन डू व्हिच इंटेग्री इज एबल टू डू। तो अगेन इट इज स्लाइटली टेक्निकल। अब इसका फायदा ये होता है कि जो हमारा जो एंड यूजर है ना, वो आपके सॉफ्टवेयर का यूजर है। तो आपके सॉफ्टवेयर यूजर माइट बी अ लेमैन, कुड बी अ सेल्स एजेंट, लेकिन उसको पता है मैं क्लिक करूंगा, मैं कहूंगा जी कनेक्ट टू व्हाट्सएप और मेरा काम हो जाएगा। उसको एक सिंपल सी चीज नजर आती है, लेकिन हम उस सारी बैक एंड की टेक्नोलॉजी को पावर कर रहे होते हैं। आई होप दैट मेक्स इट सिंपल। आई डोंट नो हाउ मच बट
It makes sense to me, but I hope it makes sense for everybody who watches this. Now, next thing, it's more of a motivating question for the viewers. What's the story behind all these years of building startups and then finally jumping into the ditch with Integri? What made you go into it?
अच्छा, Integri is not like a Integri is not my first startup, so I've been doing it since मैं जब JIK से graduate हुआ था तो my first मेरी जॉब नहीं थी। The first thing I did was a startup. I did a company. It was a startup that did computer based training courses. इसकी वजह क्या है? I really can't put a finger on that. लेकिन I would say कि growing up, अगर आप किसी पाकिस्तानी बच्चे से पूछना who grew up in the 90s, तो उस जमाने में तो एक काफी बड़ा नाम था, बिल गेट्स का था। He was one of these rising stars. He was also one of the richest men in the world. और देसी लोगों या हमारे जो in our part of the world अमीर लोगों पे बहुत ज्यादा देखा जाता है कि अच्छा देखो look at this guy उसका। तो he was a very interesting guy. मेरा उस जमाने में ये ख्याल था कि here's a guy who used his intelligence to become one of the world's richest men or using software. So why can't I do that? That was sort of my thinking around there. And this is me as a sixth grader, as a seventh grader. So this is not a very deep thought. It was just a very simple idea. But at least that was sort of like the target. Okay, what if I did this? And it's very funny. I was in JIK. I applied to Microsoft. Microsoft flew me to Dubai. Mere interviews were. I had 9 interviews with Microsoft. Or it went really well. After me, the HR guy sat me down and she asked me, "Acha, what is your 3 years plan? Because if we call you to the US and आपको H1B visa देना start करके." मैंने कहा, I want to start my own company. I want to leave Microsoft. I want to start my own company. So I didn't get the job at Microsoft because I was, even back then I knew, okay, I'm just coming here for 2 or 3 years. It's not a long-term thing. start करके. I've always believed that if you work hard enough, you can achieve most things that you want in life. I've also believed that building a company is the best way to have a large impact. One of the ways of having a large impact, economic impact, uplifting people, social mobility, इस तरह की सारी चीजें. And at heart, I am a builder. So even for this company, I am the technical co-founder. So I wrote the first version myself. I wrote the code. I wrote the API server, and I've done that with almost all of my companies. I write code, and even though I'm the CEO and we have a head of engineering, but it's something I do. I like building. But if you ask for a motivational aspect, I probably don't have a really good answer here. क्यों इसकी वजह क्या है? So
No, I guess it's mostly because of the fact that you like building things, right? People who love building things, who've been playing with Lego all their life. I mean, they just want to build things. Maybe tomorrow or a couple of years down the road, you'll build something else, inshallah. So,
absolutely. No, I plan to. I absolutely plan to. I have 1 or 2 more companies in me, which I want to get out. So definitely.
okay, that's great. So we'll do this session again sometime then. So
Maybe in 6 years.
maybe, hopefully. So Nash, since we are almost coming to an end, I'll save the last 2 questions for this time on a lighter note, actually. Right? I hope you'll be comfortable with them. What's
Absolutely.
what's the story behind progression from Nasrullah to Nash?
So I'm from GIK, and GIK mein it's very common for everybody to have nicknames.
Mhm.
Everybody in GIK has nicknames, and so it was nothing more than a mailing list पे every batch had a mailing list उनकी गपशप चल रही थी तो शुरू में nickname slash था फिर वैसी mailing list के अंदर करते करते it became Nash and it just became popular. It was a name given to me by GIKI and it was meant to be cool, not the Punjabi sense, but it was तो उस तरह but it was उस तरह
So,
तो
so is it a progression from Slash the guitarist to Nash?
I hope so. But I was a programmer. I like to think so I used to spend a lot of time programming. I used to spend a lot of time developing. बल्कि मेरा CS11 का जो project था, I made a 3D shooter game. I
Mhm.
wrote my own 3D engine. I wrote my own graphics. It sort of went from there. So yeah, I'm among family.
That's fine. In the end, Nash, uh, you have been well versed with the Pakistani ecosystem. There's a sort of like a Kareem mafia kind of thing. So, are we seeing in the ecosystem kind of like a GIK mafia now? Is there something building up because they were not very prominent, and most people associated with them are through technology.
So I would, I think the GIK alumni presence has been overwhelming, as a matter of fact. अगर आप करीम की story देखें तो करीम की सारी engineering एक GK है उनको हम IQ बोलते हैं. He built the whole thing. Now he's doing mobility in Dubai. Atif Awan, who one of the catalysts behind this current wave is Atif Awan. He came back from LinkedIn from Microsoft to Pakistan and he started into ventures. And so he was sort of like the people who so he's also a senior of mine. I'm batch 10, he's batch 9. I think we're batch 8.
Mhm.
And so, um, and so you, like, ultimately we are Pakistanis, or you'll find the fingerprints of GIK, you'll find the fingerprints of Lums, you'll find that across the board. एक चीज अलबत्ता आप नोट कीजिएगा कि जो current crop of founders आ रहे हैं उनमें से 80% जो हैं they're foreign educated, you're foreign qualified, you're foreign experienced हैं, which is a very interesting change. And I think at some point this was needed. पाकिस्तान इंडिया की तरह नहीं है. इंडिया में गूगल की है, एप्पल की है, बाकी तो वहाँ के जो इंजीनियर्स हैं उनको ऑलरेडी पता है कि इंटरनेशनल पे कैसे काम करना है. यहाँ पे हमें जो डिफ्यूजन ऑफ नॉलेज होती है ना वो नहीं होती. यहाँ पे कोई ये नहीं है कि कल हम कोई एक्स माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का बंदा आए थे. इट्स ऑलवेज गोइंग टू बी लर्निंग बाय योरसेल्फ. तो हमारी लर्निंग स्लो है. लेकिन इफ यू कैन ट्रांसप्लांट पीपल हु हैव बीन देयर, हु हैव वर्कड इन गूगल, हु हैव सीन द ऑपरेशनल एस्पेक्ट of how a company like that works, when they come back here, hopefully they're able to educate the market. It's still very hard. Just because एक बंदा आके बताया ना कि इस तरह होना चाहिए, it's still very hard to operationalize something like that. Um, but I guess that's some of the thing happening over there. NED has been vastly successful as well. You've seen some of the graduates over there. Lamski बहुत successful रह चुके हुए हैं. पर अब मैं कहूँगा कि किसी भी टॉप यूनिवर्सिटी को उठाएं, आपको उनके ग्रेजुएट्स बहुत अच्छी जगह पे ग्लोबली हर जगह मिल जाते हैं. बल्कि it's a very funny story. The people who invested, जो WhatsApp का head of engineering who invested in us, he was a friend. He basically was recommended to me by a friend of by somebody who was a Pakistani who was head of autonomous vehicles at Lyft,
Mhm.
and he was a Pakistani. WhatsApp head of engineering is a US national. Is Michael? He's a local, and this head of Lyft was recommended to me by another Pakistani from the Laxon group, and he was introduced to me by a senior of mine from GIKI. तो अगर आप इसकी वो ट्रेस करें ना फंडिंग आई कहाँ से, तो मेरा एक सीनियर था GIKI, उसने लैक्सन से कनेक्ट किया, वो स्टैनफोर्ड गया हुआ था, उसने स्टैनफोर्ड के क्लास फेलो से मिला है, वही पाकिस्तान का था, और वो जिस अपने क्लास फेलो के साथ गया था वो व्हाट्सएप का हेड ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग था. So this Pakistan network is very useful. It goes across the world. If you're looking to start up, you should definitely get in touch, especially with the diaspora. Pak launch ka pata hoga, Ali Fahad is also from GIKI. And he's managed to sort of galvanize and collect all these interesting people who are well-to-do Pakistanis who did not have a platform, they at least did not have enough belief. But now, with the quality of people, we are sort of putting together the best of the best around there. So I think if you're somebody who's starting off, you want to be able to connect to that diaspora and you want to be able to leverage that.
I'm actually speaking to Ali Fah this Sunday, so that will also be an interesting conversation. So thank you very
Absolutely.
much, Nash. Thank you for joining us at Startup Talks. It was wonderful speaking to you. Half an hour is not enough. There's a lot more for me to learn. Hopefully, we'll do it again sometime. And
Absolutely.
I'm not going to keep you from from your family anymore. Best of luck with your venture, and see you again soon. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me, Taimur. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm looking forward to having another session with you
Thank
soon.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a
Allah
great
Hafiz
day.
ji.
Allah Hafiz.